roots are.
Okay.
Now, let me say one more thing quickly about this. If you don't get 0 out as y, but this is important, I want you to think about this. Just think about this for a minute. If you don't hit exactly 0 and it goes from negative to positive, what has happened in your graph?
It's a half.
Not a half, but what has happened?
It has gone through.
It has passed through. So if you pass through and you have an equation where you go from a negative to a positive or a positive to a negative, your root is somewhere in between. And you can't say a half, you can't guess at the decimal. All you say is my root is between this and that. And it's going to happen twice. So if it crosses, if you go from a negative to a positive, we'll do an example like that real quick. If it goes from a negative to a positive and it does not hit 0 on your table, it means it's passed through 0. And so your root is somewhere in between those two x values, and that's all you have to write, between this and that.
So it's
So if it was like 1, or if it was like negative 1,
Let's
2, and then it just went to 1 again.
give an example real quick.
so it's gonna be completely on one side of the graph. Like it's not gonna be.
No? Here we go. What's the vertex here? Opposite of b over 2a.
-9.
Oh, maybe this is not a good one.
Negative
Over.
9 over 2.
2, which is negative 4.5. Take your calculator and plug it in. In other words, grab negative 4.5 in your calculator, square it, negative 4.5 squared, oops, plus 9 times negative 4.5 plus 5. What'd you get? Negative 4.5 in parentheses, squared, so it's going to be around 16, minus around 36. Good. Negative 15, this has to be in parentheses, Abby. This has to be in parentheses. Negative 15 point, what?
25.
Thank you. Okay, if this is your vertex, where's your table going to be centered around? Negative 4.5. So what are you going to choose for your x values? Look at the number line.
4.5, or negative 4.5, negative 3.5? Or like,
You don't need to even make it that complicated.
so just like,
If your vertex is negative 4.5, and you have negative 15.5 here, you're going to choose negative 5, negative 6, negative 4, negative 3. Do not keep the decimals in. It'll make it harder to graph. Go with the integers. Negative 4.5 is between 4 and 5. So that's what you need to do. Once you start plugging those in, you already have your equation set up, right? Hit second enter. Go back and edit that. Instead of negative 4.5, change it to negative 4. There's a delete key to get rid of the extra digits there. Hit delete to get rid of it.
And if you have to insert a negative, you can do second and then.
Yes, second delete, insert something. Good, thank you.
negative 4 is negative
Okay. I think we're going to hit it soon. Do negative 3, negative 2,
3. Negative 3 is negative 13.
negative 13, negative 2. Through this.
Negative 2 is negative
You're almost there. One more. Sorry, 2 more. But 0, I'm sorry, I
9.
can't fit this on the board.
Negative 3.
Negative 3, and if you put 0 in, that's easy. 0 plus 5
5.
is 5. Aha! All right, I'm sorry, we ran out of room here. If we went from 0 and we got 5 out, what has happened in our table? Our y values have been coming up and up and up. They started at negative 15, they went negative 13, negative 9, negative 3, and then it has to pass through the x-axis in order to get up to 5. So your root is somewhere between negative 1 and 0.
And then
And it's also gonna be between 8 and 9, if you go the other way. Negative 8 and negative. Negative 8 and negative 9.
I think these are like how
The root is where y is 0. So y, if it passes from negative 3 to 5, and I'm sorry that table doesn't really show it too well. If you're passing through from negative, here,
If you draw it on
I'm going to draw it this way. We'll just do one side of the parabola. We started with
negative
Negative.
4.5 over, and then negative 15.
right, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. The minute, 5, negative 3, negative 9, negative 13. Okay. Abby, do you see how y equals 0 is somewhere between negative 3 and 5? Because 0 is between negative 3
Like
and
if you
5.
draw it out
That
on the
means
graph,
your
it would already
roots-
cross the x-axis.
That means your roots are between negative 1 and 0. Your x value is the root, it's the x-intercept. So that means you have a solution between negative 1 and 0. You cannot say any more than that without using the quadratic formula, which we have to get up here. So just go back and look at that. Let's look at that right now. Let's use a simpler equation with that. That one didn't work as well as I was hoping, but quadratic formula, we'll use one that I know is going to work out pretty well. Okay. 24x squared. You will need your calculator for this. First of all, if you're asked to use the quadratic formula to solve,
You gotta get
you have to get everything on the same side, and you always move everything to the x squared. So you've got 24x squared minus 14x. What was the step in between?
minus 6.
Subtract 6. So you're going to have c equals negative 6 equals 0. That's what we want, because we want to solve it so that we've got y equals 0. So a equals 24, b equals negative 14, c equals negative 6. Here's your formula. It's given to you. The opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Couple things in putting this in, don't use your calculator right away, except to do the little things. So x equals, what's the opposite of b? Positive 14. Plus or minus the square root of, I wouldn't even put anything in yet. I wouldn't evaluate anything, except just plugging in the
Do
numbers.
we need to put negative 14?
Times 24. No, you don't, and it's easier, but I just want to be careful. It is b squared, but b squared will always be positive. So if you are comfortable enough just putting the positive version of it there, that's fine.
Wait,
Two,
why are we doing that now?
we're solving by using the quadratic formula. There are different ways you can solve by factoring, you can solve by graphing, and now you can solve by using the quadratic formula.
We don't have to revise this right
No, it's going to be given to you. Does everybody understand how we got here?
How do you like choose which one you're supposed to use?
We will tell you.
First, yes,
You will be told solve by using the quadratic formula. Solve by graph, factor, factor, factor. Factor and solve. So that's what we're working up to. We've only got a couple minutes, so I need to get through this one example. We have Tuesday and Wednesday to go through more. So we're at x equals 14. Simplify one thing at a time. What is 14 squared? And that's 6. Minus 4 times 24 times negative 6. Leave that. Do one thing at a time. What's 2 times 24? 48. Okay. Then simplify one more time. Don't pick up your calculator unless just to figure this out. 14 plus or minus square root of 196. Now, you've got a negative, you've got a minus, and a negative. You're subtracting a negative. What's going to happen? It's going to turn positive. For now, you've got a negative number right here. 4 times 24 times 6.
5.
Should be 24 times 24.
Yeah, 5, 6, 6. Yeah, 5, 6,
Okay,
yeah.
good. 5.